Hello everyone, welcome to the first tutorial of Objective-C on the Mac. I know everyone's been waiting, some patiently, others impatiently, for these tutorials, and they're finally coming. So this is just a nice introduction to the whole series, I guess you could say, and some of the tools and things to expect throughout. So first of all, to get started, we need the Xcode Tools, and if you haven't already watched any of the C programming tutorials that I already have, you'll already know, and you probably already have the Xcode Tools, but I'll also leave a link for that tutorial and show you how to download them in depth. But just for a quick example, you can Google Xcode if you want, and it's probably like the first option. And here's just a download page. If you go to developer.apple.com, you can get to the iPhone Dev Center, and in there they will show you on the iPhone page at the bottom there's a download link for Xcode. So I'll leave the link for the actual tutorial where I explained all the important stuff on downloading that, and I'll leave that in the links below. So one important thing to know about this series is I won't be starting from the very beginning of programming. Basically, I won't be covering all the basics. And some might be like, oh great, I'm gonna have to look somewhere else. But if you look at the C programming, all the C programming lessons that I've already done, that's pretty much the only basics I expect you to know. Basics, I just mean if statements, for loops, variables, just the very simple stuff. Nothing too extraordinary. And again, if you don't know anything about that, a great place to start is the C programming tutorials, and you just work a little bit through those, and then you'll understand enough basics. The reason I did this instead of doing everything all over again is because I don't want to do everything all over again. I've already taught you if statements, and they're all the exact same thing in Objective-C. So if statements, for loops, nothing really changes. So that's one reason that I'm just not doing that. I don't want to have 20 some lessons on basics of Objective-C when they're all done in C anyway. So that's one reason I'm not doing the basics. So yeah, check out the C programming tutorials if you are totally new to programming. On top of that, right now we're using version 3 of Xcode, and more specifically 3.2.3, but that doesn't really matter. 3 is the big version, and the next version, Xcode 4, will be probably totally changed in the way that it's working. And so far it seems to be totally new looking than Xcode 3 does. So when you download the tools and you download Xcode 4, then I will also have tutorials on the transition between 3 and 4, how different things work within it. It shouldn't be that much different, but again, if you're coming to this and the environment looks totally different, just check out the Xcode 4 tutorials that I will have in the future, I guess, whenever it comes out. So that's about all I have to say for that. Quick history of Objective-C. Basically, it was made by two guys originally who mixed basically they just put the language together from a few other languages. They borrowed some features from Smalltalk, which was a very old language, but basically, yeah, that's where the very beginning of it was then in the 1980s. And that seems like a long time ago, and that's because it is. It's like 30 years ago. So anyway, later on, Steve, when he left Apple, created NextStep, and NextStep licensed all the things for, basically they licensed their software of Objective-C, and they did a few things with it at NextStep, and then when Steve Jobs went back to Apple, they used NextStep stuff, and that's what Mac OS X is based on today. So that's basically how we got from 1980s to now, and Mac OS X runs on everything Objective-C, as well as iPhone and iPad as well. So any Apple product basically uses Objective-C. So it's a worthy language to learn. So to start out now, to actually create the new project, just launch Xcode after downloading the tools, And once you get this screen, just hit create a new Xcode project. And if you don't get that screen for whatever reason, you can just go up to File, a new project. Alright, so now in this project screen, under macOS 10 Applications, just click that, and here is the command line tool which we will be working with for the Objective-C tutorials, but later for iPhone tutorials and other things we will be working with other stuff in here. But for the Objective-C tutorials, to learn how Objective-C works and all the cool new things that are inside of it, we're going to be working with the command line tool. And one thing that changes from C to Objective-C is that you change what we're using, what the type is. So instead of using C, we're using the Foundation Toolkit, which has all the Objective-C libraries in it. So after that, just hit choose and save it to whatever you want, and I'll just leave it as Untitled for now. And when we launch this, we'll get a new window, and here is where our program pretty much starts. And yeah, that's the introduction to just starting Objective-C. And I will be explaining all the stuff that you see on screen in the next tutorial. And yeah, so all these tutorials will be what's new and interesting in Objective-C compared to some other languages. If you're familiar with Java and probably C++, I believe, if you're familiar with classes and things like that, this will be a little more second nature to you, just because Objective-C utilizes classes and other things like that. So yeah, we'll be getting into these tutorials very shortly, and many more tutorials to come. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, and please subscribe to the channel for all your updates. Alright, see you next tutorial.